Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's a Sketch Monkey here, and yes, I could not help myself. In this video, we're gonna have a look at the Corvette C8 and try to figure out what it is that needs to be fixed. I'm pretty sure I know what it is. So here's the thing. If you think about it, a mid-engine Corvette C8, it has such a great potential to be an awesome car, a good-looking car. And the performance is there, everything is there, but it's just this styling that when I see it, I just need to jump in and fix it. And the thing is, I'm not just going to redesign this car for the sake of doing a redesign. I want to show you the thought behind the redesign and talk about all the details that we're going to change with this car. It's actually not a lot that needs to be changed for this to be a gorgeous looking car. And I'm going to show you this in this redesign. So first things first, before we go in and dissect all the design details of the C8, let's talk about the basics of proportions. The C7, a good looking car. It's easy to create a good looking front engine car, but when we move the engine to the middle, we have to move, the whole greenhouse has to move forward, and that means that the A-pillar almost starts on top of the front axle, as you can see right here. And this creates some issues when it comes to styling. It's a lot harder to make a good looking mid-engine car because we're not used to seeing them out on the street. So even if we see a Gallardo, for example, it still looks a little bit weird. And you gotta have a nice line flow in order to pull this off. And this is one of the problems with the C8. So I think the best way to start this video off is to compare it to the C7. The C7 to me is a typical front engine two-door coupe. The proportions are there, the lines are beautiful, they're there. It's very you can see that there is a nice flow to the lines, and the lines are not complex at all. What I mean by that is, for example, you have this is just one tiny example. You have this shadowy part right here. That's at the top of the air outlet of the front wheel. And they kind of took this same shape, just inverted it, and created this part right here, this triangle. It's the same shape, but inverted and made bigger. And this line, the intake itself, they're very clean and very straight to the point. Same with the shoulder line as well. You can see that you have two key lines here. One long line that goes there, and then of course, the hood and the bumper, and they meet somewhere around here where the A-pillar goes down to the body right there. Very clean, nothing too complicated, and it feels like the design has a lot of confidence. Look at the rear, for example. Here we have a clean cut where it ends, one line, one curvature like that, and then you have, if we zoom in here, not that much, but we zoom in here and check all the lines at the rear, they all have a very solid styling to it, and nothing that curves in a weird way. If you look at this car from the rear view, it is a very cool looking car, and I really like it. It looks like the designers actually had the same vision, and they all worked towards that same vision when it comes to the design of the C7. And another thing that I want to point out is the greenhouse right here. You have this classic line of a greenhouse, and then you have this dip right here. That's totally cool, that's fine. And it goes down with one single line and meets at the same point as the shoulder line right there. So this dip is just a tiny little upward angle at the end of the greenhouse. Looks very good. You have this line right here, continues into the front bumper line, which we have there. So overall, what the point here is that there is a nice flow to the C7, and that's exactly what the C8 is lacking. So let's have a look at the C8 right here. Just compare these two. There's a lot going on in the C8. As I said in a previous video, it feels like there is four or five designers working on the car with a bunch of suggestions and ideas, and it feels like they took every single idea and implemented it from all these designers, and implemented all of those design ideas onto the car without the designers themselves having communication with each other. For example, just one example, look at the styling of the rear and how messy it is. We have one angle there, one angle here, another angle right there, and the rear lights doesn't have any good flow to it. It just looks messy. And the same thing with the side air intake here. It has too many angles to it. It feels like it's a part that they just pasted on there, because this line doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't connect with anything. This line doesn't go anywhere either. And you kind of have to have something that connects with either one of these to have it look nice and have that line flow and the line continuity. Another example we can take is the greenhouse. You have two different angles this time on the C8. I don't know why. They just decided to add one angle right here and then another angle right there. And it creates a kind of confusion in the back there. And we have another line down here that has a tiny dip to it that it doesn't know if it feels like they didn't know, should they implement a dip here or should they just keep it straight, and they couldn't agree on something, so they just came up with something in between and made a little angle upwards there. And that just, it feels like it doesn't have the confidence to know whether to be a curve or do you want to be a straight line. And I don't know if this continues into something in the front. It doesn't look like it, because this is straight and this line should be straight and connect to the front bumper like that, but instead it goes up there into pretty much nothing here as well. There's nothing going on up here that connects with this curvature. So, you know, it's just, these might sound like minor details, and actually they are, but when you have a bunch of minor details like this on a car that has so much potential, because the performance of the C8 is there, it's a mid-engine Corvette. I think they could have done it so much better. I did another example that I want to show you to kind of bring the point home, and that is this house right here. I just found this image on Google somewhere in the UK. It's a house, it's a charming looking house, it looks good, but as you can see, there's just something off with it. Something is bugging me with this house, and obviously it's the whole foundation is off. So you have the curvature, it feels like it's about to fall apart. It feels like they focused on improving some things, but the foundation of the house is off. So no matter what you add, what you take away from the car, it's still going to have to go back to the foundation and fix that. So if we call this the C8, then this would be the C7 right here. I actually did redesign a house just for this point, and hopefully it makes sense. You can see that this is so much easier on the eye and it feels a lot better. Just look at a house that has all the structural components there, and that's exactly what I want to do with the C8 in this redesign. So take a shape that we all know can be beautiful. It's a mid-engine sports car and it's a Corvette. The C7 looks good, so why can't the C8 be something beautiful? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this redesign. We're going to focus on the rear view right here. I'm gonna talk about every single detail that bugs me with the design, and if we change all of those details, I want to see what we come up with and if we can improve the design of the C8 and make it have more of a nice flow to it. Alright, let's do it. We're in Photoshop as always. I'm using a Huion Canvas 20 for this redesign. First thing we want to do is to work on the big issues with the design, and to me that is the size of the taillights. They're way too big for my taste and way too big. They take up too much space graphically of the rear, so we want to shrink them down and have them fit more nicely. And I think if you have a sports car, the bigger the headlights, the weaker the car looks. It's just, I don't know why, it's just something that I feel is true. If you have a sports car, you want to have small headlights and small LEDs. It just makes it look more menacing for some reason. Another big issue that I wanted to fix early that we already did here is to have the ducktail be either horizontal or even have a slight upward curvature to it. And that just adds to the sportiness, and you can even have, if we remove the wing, we could add an integrated ducktail into this rear end, and that by itself, that tiny change, would help out this design a lot. Another thing we're doing right now is to move the exhaust to the center. I think that's more traditional Corvette styling. Having them all the way out in the corners, it works for any other car, but if we have a Corvette, and especially since it is a brand new mid-engine Corvette that we've never seen before, we want to have as many cues from the old styling as possible to have it connect with the previous generations. And one easy way to do that is to put the exhausts in the center, so we have some resemblance to the older generations. These air outlets right here, I think they are they're not defined enough in the original version, and I think they are too small. If you look at the lower where the exhaust used to sit, the width of that, I want to have that same shape but invert it and create these outlets in the rear. So the hole that you have in each corner now, I want to have the similar shape of that inverted and create these outlets and have the size be similar to the rear lights, which we now have made smaller, and also have a similar width to the overall graphic elements that you find on the rear. I was playing around if I wanted to add a diffuser or not, but I decided to not do that, and the reason for that is to keep as much of the original styling of the C8 as possible. This is another very important change that it kind of changes a lot of this design, and that is to add these small wings on the bottom of the car to wrap around the plastic graphics and the whole black part in the bumper, because I don't want to have 50% of the height of the rear be body colored and then 50% on the lower part be a big black plastic piece or carbon fiber or whatever this material is. I want them to integrate better, and the easiest way and the nicest way to do that is to add these fenders that wrap around underneath from each side and kind of looks like it's holding everything together. And another benefit with this is that it frames the rear in a nice way. It kind of makes it look more solid and a lot stronger than if we didn't have these tiny fenders at the bottom of the car. I did work a little bit on the side as well, because this air intake, I think it needs a lot of work. It looks like an afterthought that it was just slapped on the side of the car, and also the general lines of the side needs some work. So here it is, the before and after, and I'm gonna show you now exactly all the details that were changed step by step and why we changed them. So there we have it, guys. That's the redesign of the rear view of the Corvette C8. So the basic changes that we did was to, of course, reduce the size of the headlights or the rear lights. To me, they look too big on the C8, so I want to reduce those. The biggest change that we did here was to invert this line right here, because when you have a dip like this, as I said before, it kind of creates a weak point. It looks like something is collapsing instead of having it strong and built up, which we do by taking this line and pretty much inverting it into something straight, or even have a little bit of a top bend to it, so it bends on the other way. Another thing that I think needed redesigned was these air outlets right here. They look too irregular. It doesn't know what it wants to be. So let's make them into something like this, and that's exactly what we did right here on the redesign. Move these parts, these exhausts, into the center, because that's traditional Corvette, and to me, without those in the center, this part, it looks like it's just missing something. It's just a bunch of plastic. There's not even a diffuser there. And the thing is, I could have added a diffuser down here if I wanted to, but at the same time, I want to keep the Corvette C8 as close as possible to what the designers had in mind, so I didn't add any diffusers down there. But the biggest thing, in my opinion here, with the redesign, there are two things that really changed the whole look of this car. And that is, first of all, this line right here, inverting this into a upward bend. But the second thing that really changes the look of this car is to extend this frame, the rear framing of the rear, extended down to this point. So that kind of makes it look like it has a frame, and it builds up the It just makes it look more of a solid rear end, in my opinion, by just adding these wings at the rear that goes underneath all the plastic. So you have some sort of body color going around the plastic, and not just have the plastic end right here that it goes from body color, and then boom, middle part, you have a bunch of plastic. I want to have something that kind of connects the two, and I think this is the way to go to do that. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this redesign, and if you did, hit the like button. It really means a lot to me. We might do the front view on this Corvette. It just depends. It depends on you. If this video gets 5,000 likes, let's take the same number as the PT Cruiser. I kind of want to do a side view as well, because there's a lot going on the side of the C8 as well. So we might even do like a rear view, side view, and of course a front view, because the front view kind of has to be worked on a little bit. Like the video if you enjoyed this video. I'm the Sketch Monkey, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.